You're asking for permission slip for that.
Thank you, sir.
Got an extra one if you want.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the November Middlesex County Board of Supervisors meeting to order and ask that Mr. Jesse open our meeting with prayer, followed by Mr. Walker leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just like to thank you for your many blessings. Dear Lord, we don't know how blessed we are with hurricanes and shootings in other areas. Middlesex County is very blessed. And dear Lord, watch over our servicemen and women overseas and help keep them out of harm's way. And let us make wise and just decisions as we can conduct county business. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Would all citizens of our nation rise and join me in our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first order of business is to approve the consent agenda. We do have a couple of changes under number 5, agency and staff reports. We're going to move the Middlesex Foundation up from E to A because Paul's got a foundation meeting this afternoon, so to give him time to prepare. And under item 6, F, we have some added budget transfer requests that should be in your packet or should be on your desk. And then we have a request for a contribution for flags for heroes. So given those changes to the agenda, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move. Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So ordered. At this point, we'll go ahead and open the meeting up to public comments. And the citizen would like to address the board, please come forward, give us your name and address, and please honor our 3-minute time limit.
And I forgot the timer, so.
Don't worry, I'll keep it short, okay? Good afternoon. My name is John Farrenholt, and I'm from Hartfield. Haven't been here in a couple of months, so I wanted to give everybody an update on the marine industry in the county. As you know, I've been traveling around and meeting with all of the marina owners throughout the county, and I have completed that exercise. I've gone from Remlake all the way to Deltaville and met the managers and or owners of every major marina in the area. And it's consistently the same message, that they are, and I, are very appreciative of the board's decision to lower the tax on larger boats. However, that has not declined the exodus of boats from the county. Every marina is still seeing boats leave that have annual slips with the county. And also, they've also confirmed that the quality of the boats that are leaving the county are the only boats that are leaving. The high-end boats are the ones that are leaving the county, the ones that are taxed the highest, and they're going elsewhere, okay? And we will have a flood of them departing again, the facilities here prior to January 1, so that they're not taxed. And when they leave, they take their business elsewhere. I've also been to some of the surrounding counties' marinas and boatyards, and they're fully booked. Some of them are even expanding their businesses, and it's clearly because they have people that want to come to their facilities because they are in tax-free zones. So the gist of it is, and simplicity of it is that our trend of boats leaving the county is continuing. The revenue that will generate to the county will be declining as well. So that's the overall picture of what I did, as I said to each one of you that I would do, and it is still there. I will continue to come here and update you if things change or continue. I will continue to do that as the process starts. I know that the budget process starts fairly soon, and I know this is going to be a big part of it once again. So That is the reality of where we are in the marine industry throughout Middlesex County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Any other citizen like to address the board at this point? Seeing none, we'll declare the period of public comment to be closed and go on to a very pleasant piece of business. It's always nice when we can recognize a citizen for service to the community, and I've only had the pleasure of working with this gentleman for 3 years, but somebody that I think has maybe 30 years or plus. Betty?
At least.
I'm going to ask Betty to make the presentation, please.
We have a certificate that the board would like to present to Randy Colson. The board wishes to express its sincere thanks and gratitude for 36 years of loyal and dedicated service to the Middlesex County Airport Committee. From October the 5th, 1982 to August 31st, 2018, beginning this day.
Betty.
Jamie, would you come up for a photo op and get the chairman of the authority up here with us?
I did things with Randy. Before I came to work for the county, while he was
Front side, Jamie.
We were leaving an airport committee meeting one night, and somebody said, if I didn't talk so much, we'd get out of here sooner. Chip probably would appreciate that. Yes, yes. And I will, just one
That
little
must be a
thing.
North Carolina thing, because Matt has.
Oh, really?
Randy, our support group meets Thursday night.
Oh, okay, very good.
Welcome to,
Well,
yes.
yes, thank you. But I will tell you one little story about Betty. I was secretary for several years of this committee, and I was working in San Antonio at the time. Betty was always calling me up and saying, "Where are my minutes?" So she did good. But thank the board. I've enjoyed it. It's been an adventure and a very positive one. I think the airport has, in those years, has moved greatly. We've had lots of positive experiences there. It's grown, and this little airport, we're one of the smaller airports in the state. There are 67 airports in the state of Virginia. 46 of them are general aviation, which we fall in. And we're one of the smallest of those. But because this board has always supported the airport, and Matt and his staff have always done a tremendous job in providing the reams of paperwork they need. And this board has always supported the airport. Virginia Department of Aviation has a very, very positive attitude toward our airport. They come down here and see it's well-maintained, and so they've always supported us with funds. So that's a compliment to this board. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right then, moving right along, we'll get to the constitutional officers' reports. The treasurer's report is paper only, pages 40 through 42. If anybody has any questions on that. Moving down to item 5, agency and staff reports. This is where we're going to move Bruce D. Simone with the Middlesex Foundation up to position A, because he's got a foundation meeting this afternoon.
And Mr. Chairman, to introduce the topic a little bit, Bruce and I had the pleasure of meeting with Virginia Department of Housing staff, I guess it was last week now, and we're very delighted to learn that they had additional grant money that may be potentially available to us should we choose to apply. We had a very productive meeting with their staff, and I think Bruce is going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, as Matt indicated, the meeting was quite encouraging. When I initially talked with Virginia Housing Development Authority, and I was looking at a pre-development loan, which was a favorable loan, but still a loan. And when I raised that during the meeting that Matt and I had with them, they suggested, rather than borrowing money for the soft development costs, we ought to seriously consider this community impact grant, which is a grant program that they've had in the last couple of years that actually supports the Vibrant Communities Initiative that their sister agency, the Department of Housing and Community Development, offer. It's a grant of up to $250,000, and we were encouraged to apply. And so Matt and I put our heads together and thought that a joint application between the county and the foundation would, I think, make a much stronger statement of local support in submitting such an application to the VHDA. And so I believe that a draft resolution was prepared for your review that would authorize a joint application. And since the grant program does require a lead entity, and since I'm somewhat familiar with VHDA, I volunteered for the foundation to be the lead entity on this and also save some hassle for Matt. At this point, can I answer any questions you might have?
Well, when Matt approached me on it, it seemed pretty much like a no-brainer, just bring it on and let us take action. So
It will allow us to recoup or get grant funding for some of the potential soft costs that we're going to incur on the historical and exercise jogging trail, historical interpretive trail. But being that it is on the same property as the housing and commensurate and complementary to the housing in terms of exercise and other passive recreational and of course educational amenities, it would be eligible for funding. So when we move forward with a landscape architect to help design the trail, move forward with some of the historical kiosks and different amenities that are going to be on the trail, the grant will be very helpful for us paying for those costs. And you know, it's a good thing. I'm very confident that we'll be successful on the grant. And it is a joint grant, but I got to give a hat tip to Bruce because he really stepped forward and he's done probably 95% of the work on this that's been done so far, but I'd highly recommend we participate.
Would the chair accept the motion?
the chair not only would accept one, the chair would be looking for one.
I move that we adopt the VHDA Competitive Impact Grant Resolution.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion duly seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so ordered.
Thank you very much.
Sir. Appreciate all the work you've done on this.
I have to run to my own board meeting, so thank you.
I think I owe you about 3 dinners now, Donna. Up to 3.
All right, next on the agenda, we've got the Virginia Department of Transportation. I don't see Joyce or any other representative. Do I see anybody out there? I suppose we'll not have a report from them tonight.
Could I just make a comment?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say a thank you to VDOT. There was a stop sign knocked down in Hartfield right at Twiggs Ferry and Pooler Highway. And within a day of me noticing it, I saw them up there this morning taking care of it. So, you know, sometimes we don't always see what government's doing, but when you do see it, I think it's worth acknowledging.
Thank you, sir. All right, then we move on to school matters. Dr. Peter Gratz.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't have any appropriations or any business to do with you today, so I get to just take a couple of minutes and maybe share some fun things. I want to thank all of you for the responses when I email you and call you and tell you that things are going on in our schools. Thank you for taking the time to come out and be a part of what's happening. It really means a lot. It means a lot to our students and our teachers and our staff to see you there, but also I want you to think of our schools as your schools. You don't need an invitation from me to visit them. I want you to see the things in action, the positions and the programs that we bring to you, that you support and you fund. I want you to see them and to be able to see what's happening in our schools. So thank you for the time that you've taken to do that. As always, I wasn't able to be with you in October. So I've got a few things that I'm highlighting. These are specific events I think you might enjoy. There's Veterans Day performance tomorrow morning, and it's going to be repeated tomorrow night at the elementary school if you'd like to be there. certainly, that's elementary school. Our older kids are going to be a part of the countywide celebration that happens on Monday. And I won't read all these to you. I will tell you the book fair that's going on, that's a wonderful opportunity for you to pick up things that you might, children's books for members of your family. If you want to be a part of that, we'd love for you to. And I highlighted the Scholastic Bowl because it's a group that really doesn't get a whole lot of press. If you haven't seen Scholastic Bowl or Academic Bowl, it's called in some places, it's really a lot of fun. It's an engaging activity. Kids come together on teams. They essentially respond to very difficult academic questions. I sit in these and I don't know 5% of the answers to these questions, but it's a lot of fun. So I'd love for you to be a part of those. I put on here the information for you to see just real time what's going on our website, Facebook, all of that kind of stuff. And as always, if at any time you'd like to come by, please don't hesitate to call me. You don't have to have an invitation. And if you only have 10 minutes, we'll go to a school and visit for 10 minutes. One of the things that you might run into, I brought another video here. It's only a couple of minutes. But we had one of these impromptu visits just yesterday. We had Delegate Keith Hodges with us as part of the Virginia School Board Association celebration of Take Your Legislator to School Month, which is November. So he agreed to be with us, and he spent all day, went to all 4 locations, interacting with everybody. And this was totally unplanned. The teacher came out in the hallway and grabbed me, very excited about something going on in her kindergarten classroom, and I just said, how about if I video this, and well, look, here's Keith Hodges, maybe you could be a part of it. So I thought this would be appropriate, this being so close to Election Day. We appreciate the work that you do to serve our community, and I want you to know that we take very seriously teaching our kids one of our newly adopted core values of citizenship, and a part of that is responsible participation in citizenship and democracy. And this is just an example of how we do that at our very earliest levels. So I hope you enjoy this.
Good morning and happy Election Day. So in my kindergarten classroom, they have been learning about elections, and they've been learning about how moms and dads and grandmas get to vote. And so for today, we're going to have a mock election on a class snack, which will include either popcorn or chips. And in order for the students to really understand voting, they had to fill out a voter registration form where we did this together as a class. And from there, I created their voter registration card. They will use this card to then go to the ballot box and they will make their selection. This afternoon, we will then take the ballots and we will create a graph, and then they will get to eat their special snack. Happy Election Day! Flag. What kind of flag is this?
The American.
The American flag, that's right.
I colored mine the same color.
Awesome. What colors are in the American flag?
White, red, and blue.
Red, white,
and
blue. Very good. All right. Fingers. Next page. This is an important page because we have one of these in our classroom right now. All right, finger up. Here is a candidate. That is what Delegate Hodges is. What was our candidate? Ballot. Did you guys do a ballot this morning? Yes. What was your choices?
Chips and popcorn.
That's right. Turn the page. First star. Here is the ballot box. Did we have a ballot box? Yes, we did.
And this is a great lesson because when you grow up and you can vote, you'll vote for people. And those people are the ones that represent you and make the laws and kind of make the rules of Middlesex County and the state and Virginia and our entire nation. And one day, you'll be able to vote for them. So this is a great way to learn about voting.
You guys, how did you cast your ballot? What did you actually have to do to show which one you wanted?
You circle.
So you circled. So how did you know which one was which?
You put it in your head.
I used my head. Okay, so how do I know?
So that's just a snapshot of the kind of thing that you could easily run into, and you may be wondering which one.
Popcorn one.
Popcorn one, yes, resoundingly. Do you have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
When Matt and I visited last week, we
Yes.
told your advisory committee to ask Keith for money. Did they follow through?
Mr. Holt was referencing some time that they spent at our middle school, and I have a group of students that serve as a superintendent's advisory committee. And Mr. Hodges had lunch with them yesterday, spent a lot of time with them. I can't say that they overtly asked for money, but they did do a good job of representing themselves with him. It was a great time. Any other questions you have for me? Thanks so much for all of your support and the work you do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Department of Social Services is report only, 45 through 48 pages. And moving down to item D, we have the health insurance renewal with David Rowe.
Chairman Holt.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Chairman Holt, lady and gentlemen of the board. My name is David Rowe. I help the county with your health insurance program. I see that you have my benchmarking survey in front of you. Little update on the health insurance renewal. We have been with Anthem in a fully insured plan for about the last 5 years. We've had good renewal increases. I've had good success in getting Anthem to negotiate with me. This year we got a 7.9% increase. To give you some context, health insurance trends are about 10 to 12%. So a below trend average. When my underwriter looked at the program, she projected an increase of 10.4%. So again, no one likes an increase, but unfortunately, it was validated. We did have increase in our claims. We marketed the plan. We went to all of the carriers in this location who could potentially provide an alternative proposal. Unfortunately, Optima, based out of the beach, decided to no quote us, as did Cigna. We did get proposals back from the local choice. Our school division is with the local choice. Their proposal was not competitive for us. We look at that every year, and we are better off staying with Anthem Direct than going through the state's program. And we also got a proposal from Aetna. Aetna was competitive. Unfortunately, Aetna does not have a strong network in Middlesex. My whole point in going to Aetna, as I have in the past, was to hopefully get them to be competitive so we could try to use that as leverage against Anthem. Unfortunately, I've leveraged that for the past several years. This year, they were not willing to play ball with me. They knew the 7.9% increase was fair, so the 7.9% increase did stand. We've had very, very good increases in the past. The request was made this year. I think the employees wanted to have offered to them a better plan, a plan without a deductible. So at the instruction of Betty and Matt, I went to the market, and we are proposing a plan as our high option without any deductibles. And our low option plan will actually be our plan that is currently our high option plan today. And I believe our proposal is for us to continue to fund the single-only cost for what will now be our low option plan, which only has a $500 deductible. So that's what we're proposing to you all today. Any questions on anything about the renewal? I think you have my spreadsheet in your board packet. Is that correct, Betty? Yes.
One thing I'll add just real quickly to what David said, we have started looking at the coverage or the renewal patterns, and I think we're inching closer to being right there with local choice. It seems to be, the gap seems to be closing every year, and it has been a goal of the past superintendents and the current superintendent and I to try to maybe move to a scenario where we're on the same health coverage as the school system. Currently, the school system's on local choice. There's been a couple of nuances in how the county has handled insurance in the past that we probably have to build up to in order to have that kind of changeover not be as drastic an effect. For instance, local choice requires a 20% employee match towards their health insurance costs. Well, currently, we haven't had as strong of health insurance plans, but they have been covered in total 100% by the county for single-only coverage. One of the things I think we're going to look at doing in this next budget year is maybe move to a footprint where there is an employee contribution towards their single-only coverage to get us, I guess, more in line with a potential conversion to local choice when those two lines meet and it becomes a more solid option for us. Right now, our claims history is affecting our renewal with an increase, but it's still relatively low for Anthem, and Anthem is the best option for our renewal. But during the budget process, as the new budget comes into play on July 1 with potential cost of living increases that would help insulate an employee's contribution to their own health insurance, would seem to be a good time to maybe start that conversion where we do have an employee contribution towards their own health insurance, the single-only coverage. We're going to be talking more about this in the budget process in the ensuing months, but I'm thinking maybe 10% starting July 1, moving to another 10% in the following year. And if current trends, I think, continue, that's probably, barring any unforeseen claims history, probably going to be about the time frame where local choice starts getting competitive for us.
Any questions? Thank you, Matt. Any questions about our specific renewal, health insurance renewal with Anthem? Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
Just psychologically.
Yes, sir.
Don't you think that that benefit is better appreciated when the employee participates to some degree in contribution, or do you
Yes,
find
sir.
that to be negative?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, that's the way I feel.
Did he
Yes, sir.
pay you to ask that question? Because he's done answered.
I thought maybe you had teed him up, Matt. This is, what we're proposing now is funding $641 a month for employee health care cost. That's over $7,000 a year. When it's free, people don't appreciate it. It's a big part of their total compensation package. And the other thing is, too, if it's free, we get folks that sign up for our coverage. That spouse may work for the Commonwealth of Virginia, VDOT, Virginia, Dominion Power. We get folks that take our plan because there's no cost involved. I agree 100%. Yes, ma'am.
Just curious, wasn't health insurance like the #1 issue of the current election? So wouldn't you say that's something that people take pretty seriously?
I think they take the benefits very seriously. My point is, I like for the employees to have a little bit of skin in the game in the program. I really do.
Well, and something I'll kind of elaborate a little bit on what David has said. We have employees that are Medicare eligible. It's my understanding. But they look at this as a free benefit that the county offers at no cost to them, so why not take it? They could have reasonably good coverage elsewhere, but they choose to take this as an added benefit. It's something where having an employee have a little bit of skin in the game is probably a good thing, because if there's no cost, well, okay, I'll just take it. If there's a little bit of a cost, then it makes employees make, I think in some cases, better decisions about where their health care should be and what decisions they make to supply their families with those needs.
Well, just personally, I very gladly made the transition from my company's health insurance to Medicare at the right age. What's the incentive for staying on the plan just because it's free?
It's free.
If it's free, then
Because when you go on Medicare, between your Part B premium is $134 a month, your supplement is going to be somewhere around $100 a month. A Part D plan for prescription drugs is $30 to $50 a month. This looks very enticing versus what it would cost to be on Medicare. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm 77, therefore I think I'm eligible
For Medicare? Yes, sir. I can confirm that.
Would it pay the county, since I do appreciate the health care payments that the county makes for me, would it pay the county to pay Medicare or my expense of Medicare and me take Medicare rather than keep me on your system?
Yeah, as we allow our board members in Middlesex, as do most communities, allow our board members to be on our active benefit plan. We can't subsidize, we're not supposed to subsidize your cost with Medicare. I think, as Matt was saying, probably the best way to manage this is to ask that the employees have at least a small contribution towards the cost, so that at least they have to make a financial decision about, is it better for me to be on a spouse's plan, to be on Medicare, or why would I not take this if it costs me absolutely nothing?
One of the things, too, that I want to mention for the board, and we've kind of talked about this in the past, is the deductibles that we have on our current plan or the previous plan were fairly high. And as a result, if you had other options, we have a number of deputies, for instance, whose wives work for the state of Virginia. We have a number of employees whose spouses work for the state of Virginia. And the state of Virginia coverage, even though it costs them $200, $240 a month to be on the spouse's plan, it was far more worth it for them to do so because of the coverage, and the deductibles was so much better. By moving to the current buyout plan, that becoming our base plan, we get in more in line with the counties around us, as you see on the benchmark study that was done. We get more in line with what their benefit packages are offering. I have an employee who came to work with us recently, who will remain nameless, who kind of wish she had went to a doctor's appointment before coming on board with our health insurance. But I think that this move gives us a more solid base plan. It will cost a little bit more, and it's something that I want to see some further adjustments to in the next budget year.
Any other questions about our specific plan? The other thing that Matt is alluding to is, Matt and Betty asked me to do a benchmarking study.
Yep.
So we reached out to the contiguous counties, to Middlesex. So what I've done on what you have in front of you, I've compared your proposed plan options and what you all are proposing to fund towards those costs. I've compared in the first block to Essex County, second block to Lancaster County, on the second page, Gloucester County, and number 4, Matthews County. So you all can see at a very high level what the plans cover in each of these communities versus what the employer funds versus what the employee has to fund to be on those plans. Everyone, Essex is with the state through local choice. Matthews is with the state through local choice. We are standalone, self-funded with Anthem. Gloucester County and schools buy together. They are self-funded, standalone with Cigna, because they're a much larger community than we are.
We had looked at self-funding several years ago. We were looking at it in Bath County as well, and based on our claims history, it wasn't something that we were tempted to do at that time. But that's something else that we talk about ever so often.
What other questions do you have for me? We good?
Thank you,
That's
sir.
good.
Thank you.
Appreciate the comparison.
Yes, ma'am.
That's good.
Thanks, David.
All right, our next item is update on the landfill from Resource International, Mr. Bob Hunley.
We need action on that.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Hold on one sec, Mike. Don't we need action on the health insurance?
Do you want to do that?
Can
Just
we
put it on
the transfer?
Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead, bud.
No worries. I'm happy to be here for an update to what we've been able to do on the landfill. If I can just get that up on the screen.
Okay.
There's a PowerPoint for that. It's a fairly brief PowerPoint, but do want to walk you through that. I think we were here earlier this year to go over.
Bob, here you go.
Oh, thank you. Just put it on the slideshow. There you go. And which one, just to the right?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. All right, so our goal has always been and continues to be to get Middlesex County out of post-closure care as quickly as possible. So that has been what's driving the actions that Resource has taken on your behalf with DEQ over the last year. So today's presentation will be these 4 items, our actions since the last update. I'd like to talk briefly about the Uniform Environmental Covenants Act, which has a very specific benefit to Middlesex County, potential or our planned meeting with DEQ to review surface water data, which will have a relation to the Uniform Environmental Covenants Act, and then the step approach to getting you out of groundwater monitoring, post-closure care, and then how landfill gas monitoring affects that and will continue. So the actions since our previous update include the installation of NES 2R, which was an additional well. You may remember we had a discussion about that at our last update. NES 2 was a well that was hand augered, and NES 2R is a bored well and has less turbidity, therefore less false positives on metals. We've done a redevelopment of MW10 also to reduce turbidity. Anytime we have turbidity in the wells, we have the potential for getting false positives on the metals. We've modified our purging protocols such that we purge one day ahead of time, come back within 24 hours and do the sampling. That allows as much as possible to reduce the amount of turbidity within our sampling. We've made improvements to the Thacker well piping and valving, thanks to Mr. Blake and all of his help. He has also been instrumental in helping us with improvements to the landfill gas extraction system, and there'll be some pictures of that on the next few slides, as shown here. So Mr. Blake was able to go out and upgrade the header lines for the landfill gas extraction system so that everything's above grade. We can tell if we have any kind of leaks. You're getting much better extraction from the extraction wells, and so we were, at some points, we were experiencing issues with respect to the amount of extraction that was coming from the blower. This improvement has helped that greatly. So the Eureka update is a fairly exciting piece, I think, for Middlesex. We've been having ongoing discussions with DEQ regarding the Thacker parcel and the fact that since you now own that parcel, could that well be used as the compliance point for the landfill instead of where we have been sampling, which is right along the boundary. That discussion led to the idea of, well, if we can show a declining trend in our volatile organic compound sampling in that area, could we eliminate the VOC sampling from the groundwater program? If we were able to do that, that would save you about $40,000 a year from the post-closure care costs. Then we had a discussion with DEQ about the evaluation of the Eureka application to the landfill. I mentioned the Eureka the last time we were here and whether that might be something we could pursue. The Eureka is basically the application of an environmental covenant over the landfill that says you won't use the groundwater at the landfill for anything going forward. It's basically all it says. And so it protects the groundwater use for that particular area. So if you were able to implement a Eureka, DEQ has told us, and we're going to pursue this with a meeting next week, but DEQ has told us that if your surface water points on the creek below the landfill are all clear, as long as they're below groundwater protection standards, then you will be eligible to use the Eureka. Now, like I said, we are meeting with them next week to review all of that and to confirm all of that. But if you are able to apply the Eureka on the landfill property, that will have us look at the surface water points, prove to DEQ that they don't have any GPS exceedances. We've looked at that. So far, they don't. You've had some hits, 1 or 2 hits here and there in those surface water points, but nothing has approached groundwater protection standards. So we feel very confident that that will be something that we can actively pursue for Middlesex. And once that Eureka is in place, and we think it's probably a good planning period would be anywhere from a 90-day to a 6-month planning period to get that Eureka up and running. It has to be processed through your board. It has to be processed through the state, and then entered into the clerk's office. So that, we think, provides probably the best opportunity for Middlesex to address the groundwater portion of post-closure care. Of course, you still have landfill gas issues to deal with, and we would still need to sample the landfill gas, but we also are planning to have a discussion with DEQ on the 14th next week to review the issues on how we would be able to turn off the gas extraction system, sample, and still not have a compliance issue. Because that's obviously what we want to do, is be able to show them that you're also reducing your gas as well. And once we get to the point where we can turn the blower off, we can show them 3 years' worth of clean readings, and then you're out of gas completely as well.
Bob, real quick, what
Sure.
time is your meeting on the 14th?
So the meeting on the 14th right now, I think, is set for 9 o'clock.
In the morning?
Mhm.
Very good.
Help
Mr.
me
Chairman?
understand, I made a note, surface to groundwater standards. The surface, there's a creek, and so we've got surface water.
Right.
And that surface water is going to be held to the same standards as groundwater all around, or just groundwater at the site?
I may have to get my groundwater expert to help me with this, but I believe what they're saying is that the groundwater protection standards that you would apply to a normal monitoring well would be the same standard that you would apply to that surface water sample.
That just doesn't make sense to me when you just take into account runoff.
Right. Right.
That's what surface water is. And
Right.
it would
And-
necessarily not be as pure as undisturbed groundwater. Anyway, that's just a question.
Sure. And we can verify that with DEQ as well.
Okay.
This just, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
On the, this Eureka agreement, did you say that basically involves a promise not to ever use the groundwater
Yes, ma'am. That would not be used for potable water.
for potable water?
Right. You could
It's
use
not
it.
being used now.
Correct.
Does anybody foresee ever using that for potable water if it's?
I don't
right
believe so.
there at the
That's
landfill?
the whole beauty of the Eureka, is that you're applying it over a piece of land that you're probably never going to use it for potable water anyway.
So that means no wells on that property? ever?
Correct. No drinking water wells, correct.
Would it prevent you from using that land ever for
No, in
anything
fact, that's a great question. I asked DEQ specifically about that, and I said, what kind of limitations does that create as far as economic development or any sort of development? And they said, no, it does not affect that whatsoever. It simply applies to the groundwater.
Okay, so would that have any effect then on surrounding properties and in terms of limiting them in any way?
I don't believe so.
By agreeing to do that on the county property?
Right, I don't believe so. It'd probably be a great conversation to have with our attorney and discuss that, but I don't believe that we've applied one of these to Westmoreland County at their landfill and got them out of groundwater monitoring quickly with that respect, and as far as I know, they have not seen a problem with respect to adjacent property owners. But that is a great question.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
It's my understanding it only applies to the property or the easements.
What is the rate of flow of groundwater in that area?
As far as number of feet per year,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I'm not going to have, I can get that number for you, Mr. Mansfield, and get that to you via email. I don't think it's much more than a few tens of feet per year, but I don't know that off the top of my head. This slide is just to indicate the value of trying to get you out of post-closure care as quickly as we possibly can, because the costs continue to go up, and this illustrates what you've been spending since 2012 on post-closure care. So obviously we want to get that taken care of as quickly as we possibly can. This illustrates the surface water monitoring points that are at the landfill. They have been circled in red. So you have on your left of the screen, that is surface water 1, the middle is 2, and the far right is 3. And so each of those points would become the threshold location for the application of the Eureka. As long as those points are clean and less than groundwater protection standards, DEQ is indicating that we will be able to apply for the Eureka. And then I've included groundwater data and trends just to give you some idea of what we have been seeing at each of the wells over time. And we've specifically identified the 1.1 DCA which we've had discussions with Mr. Mansfield frequently about over time, and you'll see that our trends, this S1 is a well that is located on the northwestern side adjacent to the Thacker property. So you can see the red is what is indicating the concentration of 11-DCA. The blue line is the groundwater elevation. So we were taking a look at if there was any correlation between groundwater elevations and the concentrations of 11-DCA. So you'll see the blue line in each of these graphs, but you'll see that in each of them, the trend is downward for 11-DCA. And this is NES1S, again, a downward trend.
Are they still
MW8.
asking for 3 milligrams?
I believe, let's see, it's actually between, it looks like our GPS line is 2.8. Yeah. And that is all I have at this point. Unless you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Just for everybody's information, what was that level 3 years ago? The requirement from...
I believe it was over 100, wasn't it?
It was over 200.
Over 200, yeah. Yeah, so they go through the concentrations and create alternate concentration limits frequently and adjust those numbers as they find out more about various concentration or various constituents.
I think changing from 250 some
to 2.8
down to 2.8 is more than an adjustment.
Yes, sir, I would agree. But we're very optimistic about our meeting with DEQ next week, and we'll certainly provide all that update to Matt and get that to you as quickly as possible.
Bob, we've got confidence in your ability to handle that meeting, but being that it's at 9 a.m., I know this is a subject that's near and dear to Mr. Mansfield's heart, and it's something that I've been trying to monitor too. Would it be appropriate or, I guess, feasible for Mr. Mansfield and I to go to that meeting?
Absolutely.
Do you think it will be done by 12 o'clock?
Absolutely.
Very good. We'll make plans to be there.
Excellent.
Bob, can you go back to the slide that shows our historic spend on, yeah, so if things go favorably on the 14th, what do the next 3 years on this graph look like for us?
Right. So the next 3 years, if things go favorably, we would expect that the 85-ish thousand for groundwater would come out of your expenditures each year. So we would be looking at somewhere between maybe 15 or so for the landfill gas monitoring part of it. That has to be done, like I said, until we can show them that there are 3 years worth of data without an extraction system on the gas. And like I said, at our meeting, we'll also investigate that too. Our issue is, okay, we don't want to put you in a situation where we turn off the blower and then they ding you for having a high reading at one of the probes. So we want to make sure that we can work through that issue with them so that you have a way out without getting a notice of violation.
So we would be dropping from, and I'm having trouble seeing where the lines are, but somewhere on the order of 100,000 spent last year to 15,000 next year?
15-ish.
Ish.
Well, it depends on when they release us. Yes, sir.
So the meeting on the 14th, you're not going to be released. That's just letting them know
Correct.
that you're
Correct.
planning on applying to be released.
That's right. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. We will have to go through the Eureka process. We'll have to get the Eureka applied to the site. Once the Eureka is approved, then we can petition DEQ to be released from post-closure care. They'll have to review it, and then they'll release us.
What is that approval time frame typically?
We've been working with another county on that recently, and it has taken a while. I think if we have all of our ducks in a row, it may take as little as 90 days, but that's probably optimistic, an optimistic time frame.
It's been my experience when I was on the BIPSA board that some of those take up to a year.
So let's say 2020, there's a pretty good chance we're at $15,000 a year spent. How long are we spending $15,000 a year? Does that go down any further from there over time?
So our goal is to get you out of the 15 so that you're just doing basically inspections of the landfill. And you have to prove to them that you have 3 years' worth of clean landfill gas data on a quarterly basis without an extraction system. So our next step would be to get permission to turn off the extraction system, measure it, make sure we don't have any hits, and then see if we can actually turn the system off and leave it off without getting hits. And assuming we can do that, then we put 3 years of that together, petition for removal from the gas program.
So best case scenario, 2020, this drops to 15,000, and then 3 years after that, it could drop to what?
It could drop to just minimal inspections.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Other questions?
No, I'd like to say thank you.
Yeah.
What that's worth.
Absolutely.
Get us jail quick as possible.
Absolutely.
Bob, DEQ meeting in Glen Ellen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Our next item, we've got Kevin Gentry coming up to do some 9/11 addressing update.
Right. First, Mr. Chairman, as a county employee, I would like to say that I do appreciate my health insurance.
Thank
Just to
you.
put that out there. I would like to say that for those of us, I'm a single dad with 2 kids, a little cost prohibitive for the family plan and some of the other plans. So, and that's a common refrain among some of the other employees, but we certainly do appreciate it. I'm here to talk about some stuff that Glenn Nix has done for us. Let me mention one more thing about healthcare. Glenn has been here almost 12 years, and he has not taken the health insurance because he is a veteran. So he chose, even though he could have, he did not put those costs on the county. So, go Glenn.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Kevin, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm going to close that blind. It's
Absolutely.
got a glare going on. Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to get to what I really came here to talk about, which is the 911 address verification product. The impetus for this came out of, I believe, the Emergency Services Committee, that some of the ambulance and fire and rescue and police respondents were not able to find the addresses on some of the houses. There was a big push for this back in 2001 when we told all the residents they were to post their 911 addresses where they could be seen easily. And at that time, we actually gave them out. There are still some left, but for the most part, they've been given out. And Glenn has some of these blank placards that can go on the residence or business, and you can put stencils on them. So they're still available. Some of that verbiage there, I'm not going to read to you, but it kind of gives the what the best practices for putting this on the house. Matt, if you want to go to the next slide. So Glenn's been out for the past several months looking at addresses, basically going, door to door kind of thing on the road, looking at. We've got 8,110 addresses. He's found 3,233 of them, which were in compliance. He found 380 that were not. And he mailed letters to all of those folks to let them know that they needed to get those posted and why. And if you want to go to the next slide, unless there's any questions on that one.
And he's canvassed 45% of the county.
He's gotten 45%, thank you. So that's ongoing. So this is the completion map. The green ones are the ones that did have them, and the ones that are in red or brown, I can't tell, they do not have them. So those folks got a letter. So it's pretty much all over the county. And in some cases, they were there, but they were overgrown, which is still not good. So they get a letter that says, please trim that back if there's a bush or something like that in the way. So this will continue until it's completed. I believe he's out this afternoon actually doing it. So, do you have any questions?
So what is the rate of compliance? Could you go back to that? So
Yeah, if you look at it, 45% of what he's, I guess, is not found, and that's when those would be issued. But I don't know if he's using the 5% of the total or of the ones that he's already surveyed.
Well, it looks like a little over, it looks like maybe 15% out of compliance. Out of 3,233, 380 are just not found.
I think what he's doing is he's gone to 45% of the county, and of that 45%, he's using an overall county measure.
Yeah.
He's not looked at 55% of the county But so
Yeah.
far, he already has confirmed 40% are findable, 5% are not. If you look at
5% not found, okay, 380 letters sent.
When we gave Glenn this
Okay,
project, this
completely not
was...
found and out of compliance. All
Absolutely,
right.
yeah, absolutely. When we gave Glenn this project, we told him this was a long-term project that he was to work on over course of time as his time allowed. And I'm happy to see that we've made a considerable amount of progress. And I think he's targeted some hot spots where we had had some feedback from the emergency rescue squad and fire department. So hopefully we've got some of the most egregious offenders. I will disclose publicly that the new courthouse,
I was going to say, he's gigged us on too.
yes, the new courthour's did not have their
He does not
911
discriminate.
address
He will-
listed. So we have remedied that, I believe.
So what it shows to me, with his total address plates found at 3,233 and 380 not found, he's finding in his 45% of the way through the county, 88% or so are found. So that's a pretty good sample, saying that's what the rate's going to be when he goes through here. So he's probably got another 300 or 400 plates that he won't find that he'll have to send letters to. So I think he's doing a great job.
Yep.
No other
What's our
questions?
recourse for those that just don't do it?
That's a good question.
40 lashes with a wet noodle.
We try to work with people and encourage them, and so far we haven't found anyone that's just absolutely refused to post it. Usually when someone gets sick, they want the rescue squad to be able to find them.
Right, and that's the whole point behind this, is to help the citizens, of course.
Any other questions of Kevin?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Moving right along on the regular agenda items, Mr. Walker on pages 52 and 53 will address the resolution increasing the lodging tax.
The board may recall back in January and February during our budget process that they considered requesting the state for authorization to allow for an up to 5% levy on the lodging tax. At that point in time, Mr. Hodges' legislative agenda was fairly full, and Ron McDougall's the same, and it was a little late in the legislative season to ask for an add-on. Met with Mr. Hodges earlier this month, and he has requested the board consider passing a resolution asking for that this session, and that we get the resolution to Mr. Hodges before December. So that way we're on the front of the queue as opposed to being in the back of the queue.
Would the chair entertain a motion?
Yes, sir.
I move that we adopt the resolution for lodging tax.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Seconded. Duly seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Our lodging tax is at 2 cents right now.
2%, yes.
And we want to go to 5. The 3 cents that we're going to collect, I think is required to go back into tourism.
Yes, sir. And tourism-related economic development activities, that's correct. Our ordinance would be amended to reflect that.
Give me an example of where one of the contributions of the 3 cents would go.
River Realm?
Of River Realm, our economic development and tourism coordinator position and program in total. And also water and sewer improvements in particular that are being proposed to support county infrastructure or HRSD infrastructure to provide the campgrounds with infrastructure needs. That's a potential as well.
Is the campground in favor of this, or?
We've had conversations with the campground about this issue since January, and it's my understanding that they are not opposed to it, but I think it would be a stretch to say that they're in favor of it. I think passively ambivalent, maybe?
I think the thing that brought me over to being in support of this, Pete, is in talking with some people who have worked at Bethpage and now have moved on to other campgrounds and have been in the campground industry around not only the state but around the country. It's pretty much the norm for a lodging tax to be levied on these, and that's why, sure, the business isn't going to come to us and say, yeah, bring it on, but at the same time, they're used to this in other parts of their portfolio.
It was very similar in implementation to the meals tax, where most of the restaurants, such as Hardee's and 7-Eleven, are used to collecting the tax in other localities, and it was a programming change.
And the first 2 cents are no benefit to them at all, but these next 3 stand to benefit them. So
Yep. And we're paid everywhere else too. You gotta think about it, why should some people come to Middlesex County and get a break when we pay it everywhere else? That's how I basically look at it.
I will be speaking more in detail on this aspect of this, but when we put forward the ordinance amendments to implement the additional 5%, if that's the board's desire, which I'm presuming it still is, the extra 3%, we will get in a little bit more detail where that funding would go. At this point in time, I can see it going to fund the Economic Development and Tourism Program being shifted under the EDA in their management and oversight. And that's something we'll get in a lot more detail on when we're preparing the ordinance. The 2% stays with the general fund.
Correct. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, so ordered. All righty, Matt, you're back up on deck again with the ordinance for golf carts in Whiting Creek.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have been approached by the Homeowners Association in Whitings Creek to pass a similar golf cart ordinance to the ones the county has passed in the past to allow communities to operate golf carts on state-maintained roads. A little history on this. I think we received this initial draft ordinance from the state of the Virginia Department of Transportation. It was a boilerplate that they'd used. Like most things, they need updating every now and then. Our county attorney has reviewed it, and the draft ordinance needed some changes, and we're going to continue to look at those. And it's our recommendation, or it's my recommendation, the board consider sending this to public hearing in December in its drafted state. There are some issues that I think the county attorney has brought to the board's attention that the board may want to address during that public hearing process. And if you want to add to those additional aspects to the ordinance, we can definitely do so. No rush. The Homeowners Association would like approval for operating golf carts within their subdivision. And to some extent, many people already do this. We have golf carts being operated, it's my understanding now in that subdivision, but people look the other way.
All right, so to move forward with a public hearing, do we do that by consensus, or do we have a vote on that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't know if the chair or the board would like to know what changes I made to the ordinance so that you can see that. The track changes weren't in the copy that you have in your packet. If not, I mean, I did send you a memo on that, but I'm happy to highlight that in the board meeting as well. And then you can just have.
I figured we'd probably cross that in the public hearing.
Sure,
but,
not a problem.
Whatever, it's work that you've done, and if you'd like to tell us about it, that's.
No, I'm happy to do it whenever.
Okay.
I just wanted to offer that if the board had any questions. And like I said, I did send a memo to that effect. But yes, you would just need to do a motion.
And Mr. Chairman, I went ahead and included all of the track changes the county attorney had recommended. So this draft in here is inclusive of those changes.
All right, so do we have a motion to put this to public hearing in December? I'll make that motion. Motion.
Second.
Duly seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the requirement for a community to ask for such an ordinance? In other words, do you have to have homeowners? Do you have to have a certain number of roads? Can any neighborhood ask for such an ordinance?
I think they can. I've always recommended that neighborhoods, well, I'll give you a case in point. Well, better not. I've always recommended that before a citizen comes in and asks for something that affects an entire neighborhood, whether they have a homeowners association or not, that they get a general consensus of their neighbors before doing so. Because if 5 people want something, but then 25 people show up at the public hearing and they're just diametrically opposed to it, it kind of puts the board in a tough spot. You want a general consensus in the community that they want something. So in the case of Whitings Creek, they have a homeowners association that has asked. So this was addressed at a homeowners association meeting, and they've requested it.
Mm-hmm.
But in communities or neighborhoods or areas that may not be defined by a homeowners association, you have multiple residents involved, that's always been my recommendation. A case in point is when we're asked to pass no-wake ordinances that affect everyone on a creek. I'm very reluctant when I always advise entities that come forward to the board to ask for such things, to get a general consensus of those property owners on the creek before doing so.
And even in our community at the Coves, we had a leash law that was asked for, and Matt said, you know, that's great that the HOA wants it, but you probably ought to see if the community's truly been polled, and the person that wanted it did in fact go and do that, and it made it a lot easier for me to come to the board and ask for it.
You do the work up front so we don't have angry citizens coming to the podium. Yep.
All right, we have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, so ordered. All right, Matthew, you're up again for the VACO voting credentials for our annual meeting.
As is the norm, VACO has asked the counties for their voting credentials, or their voting delegate who will be attending the VACO annual conference. In years past, Wayne has, I believe, always done this because he generally stays. I think one year it may have been Jack Miller when he was president, but the board needs to appoint somebody as their voting credentialed member for the annual conference.
I move we ask Wayne to do that again this year.
He doesn't look surprised.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Duly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. So ordered. Thank you, Wayne. All right, pressure comes off of Matt and goes on to Betty for budget supplement requests.
Not quite
No,
yet.
we're already D.
Not quite
I'm sorry,
yet.
I checked that off accidentally.
That's
Budget
okay.
calendar adoption. Go
It's
ahead,
because you've seen it a couple times.
Yeah.
The Joint Budget and Finance Committee have worked on the budget calendar, and we have we have reconciled our budget calendar with the schools' budget calendar that they have adopted, I believe, and are moving forward with. They get started on their process a little earlier than us. But this is the proposed draft budget calendar for FY20 budget. Again, it has been reconciled with the school's calendar. No substantive changes. It's pretty much similar to how we did things last year. There are a number of work sessions that are listed as tentative work sessions that are there if we need them and only if we need them. There was some confusion last year about that, and unless the board decides they need them, they're not. But they're penciled in, so it gets on your calendar so you know to block that time out if it's needed. This process has generally worked well for the county in the past. It's allowed for very good coordination with the school system, and I would recommend, and we've worked on it a little bit with the Joint Budget and Finance Committee, I would recommend the board adopt the draft budget adoption calendar for FY 2020.
Fellow supervisors, how do you feel about the calendar?
It's a lot of meetings. So moved.
Motion, looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Duly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So ordered. Now, Betty, didn't mean to jump the gun, but budget supplement request, and then you'll have a transfer request that was a late addition to add.
Just a couple of these. These are all what we call in and outs, where we've gotten revenue in that we want to put back against the expenditure to match it. So the first one is FY 2019-21 is for within the Economic Development Department, appropriating back $2,562.50 that was received from the Virginia Tourism Corporation. Can we just go through these?
Unless anybody has a problem, we'll just go through them all and
Okay.
vote on them in a batch. Anybody has a question,
Yep,
stop and
me.
ask it then, so that we will know if there's a contention.
Number 22 is a reimbursement that we received from a consultant attending the VACO conference. We upfronted David Rowe, the health insurance consultant. We paid for his registration to go on our behalf to that conference, and he's reimbursed us for that. So that's an in and out. Then we have in number 23 is it's coming from the fund balance, but it's actually money that was budgeted last year that we did not spend, where we missed the fourth quarter payments for the Bay Transit and Bay Aging and RCC. They in our transition with accounts payable people, we missed those 3 payments that were to those agencies. So that money was not spent in FY 18, and I'm asking that it be rolled forward so that we could cover those expenses out of this year. Then we have 2 grants received for emergency services. One of them is a local emergency managing planning grant for $7,500, and the other's a $7,500 hazmat grant. So those are all the supplements. Those are all just in and outs, with the exception of that one that is coming from the fund balance, but it was unspent money from last year that we're rolling over.
What action do you desire on the supplements?
I move that we approve budget supplement requests FY 2019-21, 22, 23, and 24.
I second.
Motion duly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr.
So
Chairman?
ordered. Yes, sir, Mr. Mansfield.
Is it really necessary to go through this each meeting?
I believe it is.
Well, the auditors require us to get your approval. Now, I don't necessarily have to bring them all to you each meeting. I could hold them until 3 months, or, bring a bigger pile to you every quarter or something like that. But the auditors, it is required that we bring them to you.
I mean, you get some money and you're asking to put it over here.
Mhm.
And by the way, I can't see me ever saying no to the.
Right. Well, it balances the budget back out, but it is required to do that.
Oh, that's good enough. Thank you.
All right, Betty, would you like
Sorry,
to move on to
jumped
the
on in there.
transfer request?
Okay, so the transfer request that I handed out to you, and I'm so sorry I did not get this into your packet. It got buried underneath the airport stuff on my desk, actually. But this goes along with what David Rowe was talking about to you earlier, with a request for the county to pick up the increase in the employer's share of health insurance to fully fund the employee-only share. We would ask that this come from the contingency line that we already have money budgeted in to cover the remaining 8 months of this fiscal year. So that would be $50,481.60. This covers 60 employees that currently have health insurance through the county. 8 months, that's an increase of $105.17 to the employee only cost for that, because we increased the plan. And so that this would require action on taking that action to fully fund the lower of the employee-only cost or fully fund the employee-only cost of the lower plan that we are offering, and doing the budget transfer to make it happen.
Understood. Anybody have any questions of Betty?
And if you're confused with all the lines, these are all the different departments that it's going to hit. With the Sheriff's Department, for example, the Sheriff's Department has 18 employees, and that cost, and the second highest is Social Services.
Would the chair entertain a motion?
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the budget transfer request FY 2019-07.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I was unclear on one part of what David Rowe was saying. I think I understand what this money does in terms of improving the healthcare benefits for county employees outside of the school system. But does it actually address the zero skin in the game issue, or is that still an issue that needs to be?
It does not address zero skin in the game at this time. We would probably move to do that as part of the budget process and implement something along the lines of a 10% employee contribution July 1, commensurate with probably a cost of living increase to help kind of balance that out.
And then you anticipate doing that another year, and then that'll bring us more in sync with the schools?
That's my current thinking.
Yeah,
Of course,
that's what I thought
quarterly, when we get into the thick of the budget work sessions, that thinking could change based on the financial realizations. But my current thinking is the quicker we can get in line with a local choice type base where the employee contributes 20% and the employer picks up the 80%, the easier that conversion to local choice would be when it becomes cost effective for us to do so. The local choice, because it's a larger group of employees, is not increasing as fast as standalone plans.
Right.
If we have a couple more years of bad claims history, for instance, we may find that our renewals get a little costlier. And sooner or later, the local choice line is staying a little bit more stable. Our line continues to go up. They're going to intersect, and at that point in time, it's going to be in our interest to switch over to local choice and be on the same plans as the school system's on. One other benefit that I didn't mention earlier when David was here, we have a mid-season or a mid-fiscal year renewal now. Our renewal hits on December 1st, which means we have to make adjustments like this every year. And it's always a timing issue where we're working with Anthem to get our renewals, and then we're trying to get information to the board. We've got to make financial decisions, and we've got to shift money from contingency to pay for any increase we have. A local choice renewal is standard throughout the state, July 1. So it runs with the fiscal year. We can make those decisions maybe earlier in the budget process. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, local choice has their renewals out a little earlier because, again, it's a bigger pool, but I can't confirm that at this time. If and when we do move to a local choice, we'll be commensurate with the schools, and well, all of our employees in Middlesex County would be under essentially one type of plan, which is a goal that I think started with James Lane and I when he was our superintendent. And then Tom and I worked towards that, but the school's claims history is not as good as ours, and therefore Anthem remains the better cost option for us.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. So ordered.
I want to take this opportunity to thank the board for addressing the health insurance issue. I think this is a good, solid move to give our employees a little bit better benefits, and on their behalf, I thank you. And not lost on me is the employees that have families on our plan. That's something we're going to be looking at in the budget process as well.
All right, who has the request for the Flags for Heroes contribution?
That's the Betty show, I believe, but I can handle it if she's not ready.
I do.
Okay.
Like that. I passed that out to you also. Betty Bray actually is the one that asked Mr. Walker to present this, but last year the board presented a
You say I talk too much. There you go.
The board participated in this program as a corporate sponsor, and the opportunities are there again to do that. They have 3 different sponsorship levels for corporate, where red is $400, white is $200, and blue is $100. And last year, the board made a contribution of $250, so I'm assuming that was probably the white middle sponsorship. But this is for the flag, and I'm sure John could speak to this also. This is for the flags that the Rotary puts out at Memorial Day and Veterans Day, 2 different displays throughout the county to honor our veterans.
This year, they're going to be at, out in front of Christ Church again.
Right, for Veterans Day, they're there, and
Yeah.
it looks like
The whole weekend, extended weekend.
for Memorial Day, I think I saw they put them down in Hartfield.
Yeah.
Since you're a member of the club, what is the recurring cost of that? Once you bought all the flags, what is the need for money on an annual basis, or is that in that piece of paper?
I think it's every year you make a decision as to whether you want to contribute. So this will be a recurring request that we can, at any point, say we really don't have the money to support that, or.
So it probably is somewhat of a fundraiser for the club as
It is.
opposed to, okay.
It is.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, what is your pleasure?
Well, I think it would be appropriate for the county to participate. Now, I wonder if it would be feasible to do so in honor of either a veteran who works for the county or has recently worked for the county. I don't know. Collecting that information, I don't want to create a chore, but it might be possible that, to do it as it would be an opportunity for the board to recognize specifically one person or maybe a group of people's service. Perhaps veterans who
Maybe
work for the Social Services Department or veterans who work for the
Mr. Miller?
Maintenance Department.
What about Miller?
And also on our planning commission, the gentleman who is a World War II vet.
Oh, Mr. Wake.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wake, whose name was.
That might be a good one. He's been on the planning commission for many
He's a good guy.
years, and he's a World War II veteran.
Seems like a
Well,
good idea.
With two flat, you can have names on them, it looks like.
I move that we support that at the white level.
I have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion is duly seconded, do we have discussion?
I'm going to recuse myself from voting, as I did.
I think that's fine. I just have a question moving forward. We've done it in the past, and so I have no problem with moving on in the future, but taking taxpayer dollars to help with fundraisers, I just want us to be aware of what it is that we're...
I have a little problem.
And I don't really have, because I was a Kiwanian for 35 years, and I know you just go ask for money where you can and raise money to do the good work that you do, and I get it, but it is a slope that might have a certain degree of slickness to it, and I just we've done it before, and there's no reason not to do it again, but I would be cautious moving forward.
I have the same concern. However, it is flags for veterans, and I do think that paying $200 per year to support.
$250, I think is what we...
It was $250 last year.
But the white is $200 this year, so, okay, all right.
As I speak for the $200, I'm speaking for thanks to our veterans.
All righty, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the white contribution at $200 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. So ordered. Madam County Attorney.
I do not have any updates. I sent you quite a few memos, so if you have any questions, please see me about those.
Thank you. It is easier on me to get that by snail mail, and it's harder for me to read it on the screen. I have to hit control and spin my mouse to get it big enough that I can see it on the screen. That's a function of age, I'm sure. County Administrator updates. Mr. Walker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you have a copy of my report. I won't go into great detail of what is in your packet, but I do have one additional thing I would like to report and update the board on. I think this was preliminarily discussed over several board meetings as board comment, if my memory serves. several years back, about 10 years ago, we had a grant to put in multi-purpose paths and bike paths in Deltaville. We had, I think, a grant that was awarded to the county from the Virginia Department of Transportation with Federal Enhancement Act funds to provide more pedestrian-friendly access to the community. That grant effort largely, actually it's more than 10 years ago, it may have been 15, largely, don't know quite how to put it, but it kind of fizzled because of the lack of ability to obtain the necessary easements to move forward with the project. We have resurrected that multi-purpose path project. I have one of our employees working on investigating the new and updated requirements on such a potential grant for the community. I know safe passage in Deltaville has been an issue that the marinas has brought to our attention, as well as to some extent museum board members down there. Ideally, the thrust of this project would be to try to connect Deltaville marinas with the museum, with the DCA building, with the grocery store, all along the main route, and provide a safe multi-purpose path or various multi-purpose path accesses throughout the community that would make Deltaville, the village of Deltaville, a little bit more pedestrian friendly and encourage people to bike, maybe even use golf carts if they can be allowed, and have jogging paths and whatnot. Currently, and I think I've heard it said that a person at some marinas trying to get to, I won't say the ABC store, but it's one of the destinations of choice.
It's one of the most popular destinations in town.
I wasn't going to say it. Well, I teed it up for you to say it. But also the grocery store or the swimming pool at the DCA. We have areas that are passable. We have areas that are safe to walk or along the road, but there are also some areas that are a little tight. And the speeds that people travel along those roads may be commensurate with some of the safety concerns. When we looked at some of the preliminary requirements of the now Federal Enhancement Act funds, we meet a number of those triggers that would make us have a successful application. Currently, I have Mark Longest, one of our newer employees, working on this. He seems to be enjoying it. He's learning something new. It's my understanding from Mark that he has a meeting scheduled with VDOT in the next couple of weeks to discuss a potential grant application and the 12 enhancement activities that are potentially fundable. Some of the 12, just to give the board a little bit of information, the facilities for bicycles and pedestrians, safety and educational activities for pedestrians and cyclists, acquisition of scenic easements and/or scenic or historical sites along such paths. Not lost on all of us is the scenic historical highway programs, including tourist and welcome center facilities, ties in economic development components. We, based on my understanding of the former project, met a lot of the Inner Surface Transportation Enhancement Act grant requirements that were then prevalent in the mid-90s and early 2Ks. We feel like we'll have a very strong application here. It is also, we've kind of charted preliminarily where some potential multi-purpose paths could go, utilizing existing unused right-of-ways instead of having a firm reliance of having the paths be on major roadways, actually utilizing some of the right-of-ways that aren't developed and being able to couple together portions of the community that way, as opposed to trying to put the paths right side by side with 33. So I'm very encouraged by the initial findings Mark has had. He is going to be meeting with the Department of Transportation, and I believe he's going to be meeting with the PDC staff that get involved in these types of projects, and we'll have more to report later.
Mayor, if I could add, I think we all acknowledge that our county is changing, and the change is not necessarily all that great without infrastructure, and the property value has been kind of stagnant. The boat business is what it is. The boat tax is a part of that, but it's not the sum total of it. And I'm hoping for a resurgence of business in the county when we have the things that people coming from urban areas want: water, sewer, broadband. They don't, the challenges that used to be fun 34 years ago when I first came down here are not that way. And I think that the addition of infrastructure is getting out in front of things and giving people what they need. And the resurgence, we need to be ready to be able to handle those people, because there are potential developments in that skinny part of 33. I don't know of anything specific, but there is real potential for developments down there which will put more pedestrian and bicycle pressure on that road. And I, for one, I've got a place down the end of that road. I wouldn't travel it on a motorcycle on a day. I'd drive it in a truck, deuce and a half.
Paramilitary truck.
Paramilitary, that's right. That's right. So anyway, I think this is not just something that would have been nice if we had it 15 years ago, but I think we can look for a resurgence of activity in that community. And it is a health, safety, and welfare issue, if ever there was one. And why we haven't had a major accident involving a pedestrian or a cyclist on 33, I'm just very thankful it hadn't happened, and hope we can put something in place before it does. That's the end of my editorial comment on the mobile use badge.
Chairman, can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm working down there right by you. And I'm gonna tell you, there was a cyclist, one of the bowlers, and there's no ditch. I mean, no shoulder. No shoulder. The ditch. The ditch. So, it was another car coming toward me, and the cyclist stopped. And I stopped behind him because, it was no room for him to do anything. So, I stopped so the other car could clear. And I was sitting there thinking, I said, it's a dangerous situation down there with that. And especially, I guess, when summertime, when a lot of other bikers, cyclists, and I say boat people, because they go back and forth to the grocery stores and different things like that. But once you get past the firehouse and all those other areas, you're right in the ditch.
Yep.
And, I don't get down to that end of the county a whole lot, but, it's amazing to see a lot of your boating people down there. And I'm going to tell you, slip's full. They're full down there. Big boats, and they're all full, and boats are coming up on the lift up and down every day. And one thing I really want to do, I'm going to go to every marina. I'm going to do that, take pictures, videos. I'm just going to do that myself to see what's actually going on, because we can get anybody to come here and tell us anything, until we as citizens go down and see it ourselves and see what's going on. Then you can get a real good idea, because I never knew there was so many big boats filled in those slips down there. And if you sit here and think of him, everybody's leaving Middlesex County. Until you go down there and see it yourself, then you can get some real actual idea of what's actually going on. And I'm just speaking of one marina right now. I hadn't had a chance to see the other one because I don't get down there that often, but I'm gonna make it my due diligence to go down there and check every marina and take pictures and get an actual account for myself, because a lot of times people can say things, but you got to see it for yourself.
And one of the efforts that I had citizens approach me about bringing this back up again, and one of the ideas I had was to do it on a grassroots sort of level, because I'm really getting a little weary of the public saying, yes, we want public access. So we buy something or get something, and then there's 100 people that don't want it, and it goes away. And I really don't want to see that happen with this. I want to see, I've talked to a couple of the marinas. One marina owner down closest to me said he would donate land towards it, no problem. The marina next up from him is all for it, just thinks it's a wonderful plan. So if we can get the grassroots support, then if we need somebody and they're a holdout, maybe some peer pressure could be applied, and we could get her done. But I really think this is an important thing for the county to see through.
Not to sound overly optimistic, but I think we have different property owners that own key properties that in the past have been holdouts that may not be so this time.
Well, I hope not.
I think also the motel down there, they're cleaning that up. Somebody's going.
Yeah, there's activity.
I was there, when I see that, I started walking over there cleaning it up. Look like they're going to.
I hope that building has some bones, because it certainly doesn't have any cosmetics.
Would it make sense to consider forming a committee?
I would like to see what Mark gets together.
Okay.
And I have already put some feelers out through the DCA and gotten a couple of decent comments back from them. They don't want to head up a project like this, but that's a good base of public support to grab for it. So I think if we can get don't say, well, do you support this? Well, what is it? Well, we don't know yet.
Right.
We'll hopefully have something that might work, and then approach the public on it.
I would tend to agree with that. We approached the DCA several years ago about maybe trying to take a lead role on developing some multi-purpose paths, but it's not really in their wheelhouse, I would say. There is going to be a role, I think, for the DCA to play in helping us have our outreach efforts to the community. And once we know the framework of a grant application, I think then it would probably be a very good idea to try to get some local stakeholders on a committee to help fashion the actual grant itself, once we have the framework in place.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep. Two other quick things. We had it in this year's budget for a buildings and grounds staff position to work alongside John Blake due to workload and demand and foreseeable projects in the future. Betty and I are probably going to be advertising that position this December, or probably in the next several weeks. Once again, we have money in this year's budget for that position. We think we're going to be in need of it, and it would be our intention to start advertising and interview for that position, and maybe even have a job offer made by the first of the year or February at the latest. HRSD sewer update. Real quick, we met with HRSD staff on site recently. HRSD has stated a preference for a gravity sewer system at the Cook's Corner service area to coincide with our grant-related facilities and other service needs. We have finalized conceptual design of a gravity system. Currently, we're working on finalizing locations of the actual lift station, which needs to kind of be in a low area, but not too low where it would flood. And it's my understanding that the current desire by HRSD is to consider putting in a transmission force main from the Cook's Corner service area and bring the sewer back to the treatment plant behind the regional jail for treatment. That's my understanding. We have met a couple of times with HRSD. They do understand the timing involved of our sewer project alongside our water project in terms of our grant, our Cook's Corner project, and they have committed to meeting deadlines, or, quote, pump and haul would be an option at their expense, unquote. So we're fairly optimistic that that project's moving forward. We'll have more to report soon. Right now, the conceptual layout of the gravity system is at HRSD for their final review and approval. We think it will be in the next couple of days, and we may have more to report on that in December. In fact, you may actually see Ken Baybutt and or Jessica Kowatowski. I'm going to murder her last name, but she may come and give the board an update on it as well.
So, Matt, that means they're not interested in the dispersal?
Not at Cook's Corner.
At that location?
Not at this time.
And there's capacity here for
Yes,
the
ma'am.
Cook's Corner?
They
But
believe
not
it.
necessarily for Topping, Locust Hill,
No,
Hartsfield?
that would be the next plan
Question.
to how to serve those. There may be some interest in a drip dispersion plant in Topping. That's kind of yet to be determined, but this one was close enough to the Saluda system where they felt it may be a better option to do a transmission force main. And the capacity does exist to handle our grant-related facilities. And I think we're exploring other options, too.
Very good. Does that complete your comments?
Well, I had one other item.
Okay.
We received an email this morning from our consultants with the Water Authority. They are in the final discussions with DEQ. We may be moving forward with a draft permit as early as January. Maybe December, but I'm not going to count anything during the holiday season. That's kind of new information, so I wanted to make sure I conveyed that to the board as early as possible.
I lose track of when we applied. How short of 18 months is that going to end up being?
We're actually tracking very well. I would still liken this permit process to an expedited process relative to DEQ's other processes and other groundwater withdrawal permits. I would add that the Water Authority has moved their regular meeting because of Thanksgiving. I believe we've scheduled that for of the 14th, the afternoon of the 14th. Of course, board members are always welcome. If more than 3 of you attend, you got to let us know. But we're going to be moving the meeting in response to Thanksgiving. The reason why I'll handicap DEQ is I know how the state functions, and once you start getting into the holiday season, people start taking the annual leave. If they don't take it, they lose it. It's harder and harder to get things done once you start entering into the holiday season, which really technically starts at Halloween. So we're in it now. And the closer we get to Thanksgiving and Christmas, I think the more we're looking at a January date. And that was all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Can I Matt?
Absolutely.
Matt, once, I guess to say, with the Water Authority, once they start digging the line for the water, how long will it take to get to Deltaville?
We anticipate, and I'm going to picture the Gantt chart in my mind when I say this, we're waiting to update that chart based on the recent changes that USDA asked us to incorporate. I'll give you a for instance. If we start construction summer of 2019, we will have sewer to Grays Point Campground by the fall of 2019, I'm confident.
Sewer or water?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Did I say sewer? It's on my mind. We would have water to Grays Point Campground by that fall. It's possible we'd have it deployed by the end of 2020 to Deltaville.
Those are 2 pipes you don't want to switch.
No. You don't want to switch those. And of course, one would go on one side of the road and the other on the other. And I believe that 1.5 to 18-month, well, a little bit more than 18 months, maybe 22 months window was what we had on the original Gantt chart. We were asked by the USDA to bid the project as a whole as opposed to bidding it in phases. They were concerned with the current market conditions affecting the different phases if they were staggered out and bid separately. They're fine with us constructing it in phases, but they want all 4 of those phases bid once. So we kind of had to circle back and handle some easement issues in Deltaville that we were anticipating being allowed to handle in the spring. So adapting on our feet and moving forward.
5 of them on the same time?
Potentially. Yeah, we're waiting on some final determinations from the Broadband Authority. And
We're trying like heck.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on into unfinished business, I'd just like to preamble. I appreciate Heather and John working on the offshore drilling resolution because I was uncomfortable with us opposing something for reasons that I wasn't. I mean, we've got the DEQ and all these federal authorities that are supposed to clear these projects, and we're going to armchair it and say, no, it's bad because it's going to make a whale go deaf or something. So I appreciate you all working through that, and I think it's perfectly legitimate to be concerned about a spill and the hurt on tourism and all of that sort of thing. And that's what I read in this resolution. That having been said, in full disclosure, as Matt would say, I've been working in the petroleum business all my life, and renewable energy cannot take the place of fossil fuels at this point. So I have to say to myself, wait a minute, we've got to be responsible about how we explore and what we do to look for more energy to keep us going until we can reach that goal of renewable energy. So I will abstain from voting because I really don't want us to stop looking for stuff. But I thank you all for addressing that resolution. And John, I'll turn it over to you now.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, and what I'd remembered from the previous meeting was that we were seeking simplification, so that's the task that Heather and I undertook. It's now about 100 words in its meat. It's pretty simple, and I thought I was addressing your concerns in a way that I wouldn't have to see you abstain, but I understand your point of view. If it's the will of the board, I'd be happy to read those 100 or so words and see if we have consensus, or if you've all read it in your own time. I'm happy to.
I've read it in my own time. I think he did an excellent job.
Good.
Did what I wanted to do.
Good. I feel the same way.
And I would just add, I found myself at Oyster Festival this past weekend, and Oceana had a pretty significant impact on my kids at the tent there down by the water, where there was sort of an environmental and ecological tent where they were able to touch some organisms that were being brought right out of the water. I mean, this group, aside from the resolution, is active in our community. and has gone out and found a number of communities that would be impacted by a spill. And they're not just advocating and showing up at the podium here, they're actually in our community. And I was real pleased to see my kids respond to some of the programs that they're putting on in our community as well. So with that, that's the extent that I care to present on it.
All right, so is that in the form of a motion?
I was hoping for a motion from someone other than me.
I would like to make the motion that we accept, we put this to vote,
Is there a second?
and so that we can sign it.
I'll second the motion. Motion duly seconded. Is there any further discussion? I realize my comments probably should have come under discussion.
No problem.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to acknowledge, I appreciate the work and that goes into organizations that bring this to our attention, and I think that it's very important that it's done, and it's done by a lot of citizen volunteer work. I also appreciate bringing the issue to the forefront, but you know, I still have reservations about the scope of our work here on the board, and some concerns that are unrelated to this particular resolution.
I share your feelings. But, okay, we have a motion, seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. 3.
That would be
4.
2 abstained.
I abstain.
So Mr. Holt and Ms. Swinehurn abstained.
Abstain.
Just for the clerk,
So
because she's trying.
3, 4, and none against. Right. Motion passes. All righty. Supervisor comments and reports. Why don't we start with our newest elected supervisor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, my report is pretty straight. Most of my activities involved being out in the community as much as possible, and I just, in terms of meetings, they were not so much the formal organizational meetings, although I did attend the community programs meeting last month. But I just wanted to say, in the meet and greets and the forums, visits to civic organizations and church groups, I also visited businesses, farms, manufacturers, and the volunteer spirit, the civic spirit, and the engagement in this community is remarkable. And every day I was affirmed, and every day I was energized by the people who are working here on so many projects and different types of engagement. And I think that it's important that we recognize the contribution, how vital it is to the community. And it's clear that in every organization that I visited, they're seeking new members, inviting new participation, inviting people who are coming to this community to be involved, inviting young people who are getting, becoming adults and to get engaged. And I think it just points to the potential for welcoming new citizens to our community as well as visitors. So I'm grateful that those organizations exist, because that's what makes it possible for us as supervisors to engage with people. You know, whether it's the DCA that you're talking about, or a volunteer fire department, or a church youth activity. If that wasn't there, it would be a lot harder for us to have any idea what people's concerns were. And I also wanted to thank the registrar and her organization, which includes many volunteers, but her staff as well. I thought the service they provided was excellent. It certainly was from my point of view, and from many people who I sent to the registrar for different questions. And I want to recognize the volunteer effort for the election, which is incredible. And I think it's important. And so I'm glad that people are willing to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. John?
So I had a number of meetings this past month, joint finance committee with the schools on the 10th. I've been meeting a good bit with Middlesex County Public Schools about getting a solar project up at the high school and potentially making us the first county public school system to be completely solar powered, needing no more oil except for all of our vehicles and
I hear you.
But the point being, there is an opportunity for some more savings at the high school, and I think we should have some news after the 12th when the school board meets, and we would be using the same vendor, I think most likely, but the savings won't be as impressive, but we did negotiate with them, and there'll still be some significant savings. Middlesex Foundation meeting, we're stepping through from grant award into project reality. I'm sorry I'm missing that meeting now, but actually sometimes it's okay to miss meetings. Community Resource Fair at the elementary school, the election forum at the DCA hosted by Rotary, Lion, and Kiwanis. I think it's really neat to see our philanthropic groups supporting all of our candidates, all of the people seeking election, and giving the community a forum to hear their ideas next to each other. Another meeting with the Sun Tribe and Middlesex County Public Schools. The Oyster Festival dinner, which was my first time being invited to that. That was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that. YMCA board meeting, again, as I promised, I have been going to those board meetings monthly, and I've been very pleased at the review of their financials and some of their thinking and thoughts about how to add more services to the community. They're very much on the front line of what it is to be a contributor to a rural community that has needs. Many a broadband meeting, some with potential engineering vendors. We're really paddling quickly on the Broadband Authority to make sure we can take advantage of the opportunity that presents itself with the water project going in the near term, but we're learning that these authorities are undermanned and undergunned, but broadband, I think, is important enough for this community that we're going to overcome those challenges. And most recently, I was a craft beer server at the YMCA 10 at the Oyster Festival, which was one of my favorite meetings this month. So the other things that I'm working on that didn't necessarily have meetings that I can talk about, I've been taking some tours with the county administrator, looking at some public beach opportunities. And I would echo Kathy's comments and sentiments regarding the registrar and the volunteers. The election process this time of year for those people, it's a big part of their lives to handle that. And I thought of that when I was in voting and seeing those people who'd already been there for a couple hours at 7:30 or whenever I rolled in and would be there all through the day with very little breaks. So we have a lot of great volunteers in the community, not just during the elections, but in general, and they're worth recognizing. And that concludes my comment.
Gene put in 15 hours.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
May I make a comment, John? You know that this FACO meeting that's coming up, they have someone coming in to talk about broadband.
Yep.
Will you be able to make that?
I think we're going to have one of the Broadband Authority, if not more, there. My schedule is a bit constrained on that particular date, so I'm unfortunately going to have to miss that one.
I may be there if you'd like me to.
That'd be great. The more ears and eyes we have on the broadband developments, I feel like I've learned a great deal in 6 months, but I came from a very shallow knowledge pool when I started. So one of the best things we've done, I think, is reach out to the community and find people with expertise and knowledge in the area. And that makes me feel a lot better about the steps we're taking, because I still don't know enough to really run it by myself. And that's why we do an authority and not a czar.
Mr. Jesse?
Yeah, I attended the Oyster Festival Foundation meeting, and as you know, we had a very successful Oyster Festival, 61st Oyster Festival, and also I do a lot during the Oyster Festival with my sound, so you know, it's from the crowning of the Queen, the oyster shucking contest, and the parade. But it was very touching at the oyster shucking contest, as you know, Deborah, which was the queen of the oyster shucking, you know. She's been to nationals and everything like that. She's battling cancer right now.
Oh,
So
God
she
bless.
wasn't there. Her sister normally, her sister was there. She won, so she's going to represent for the Nationals. But we were able to talk to Deborah through the phone. So the sister called her, and everybody spoke to her and everything like that. And it was a little touching at the time, but it was great to hear Deborah's voice because she's always there. She's always supporting the Austin Festival. But I guess this was one of the first times that she wasn't there. So. And my other meeting, I wasn't able to make it because the hurricane messed one of them up, and I wasn't able to make the other meeting. But that was it for my report.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mansfield.
Yeah, I brought up to several people, what would we do at that, I know in the Kiwanis tent, what would we do without the shuckers? And I just ran a little experiment, little industrial engineering. I can shuck one oyster for every 23 that a real shucker can do.
I'll confirm that test. I will.
Will you time me?
So, by the way, if you want to, just for a good calculation, if we lost them, multiply 23 times 8. That's how many people that, according to my calculation, it would take to take care of the Kiwanis tent.
Well, I know the professional shuckers, they can shuck 24 oysters within about 3 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, well, then
It's amazing. It's an art form.
Okay, I've just got a couple of quick things. Next month at our next monthly meeting, we will have the people here from the historic. Let's see what they're actually called. VDHR, Virginia Department of Historic Resources, will be here to talk about Saluda as being a historic district. There is some question about some people with the historic homes are concerned that if we do go that route, if they want to change their windows or something like that, will that be a problem? And I am assured not, but just to make sure, we sent these letters to all the people that would be affected, giving them the name and address and telephone number, who to call at the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. What they will be asking us for is $6,000 to go along with their $6,000 to cover the cost of making Saluda a historic district. It is my feeling that that will be a very good investment for our county.
So the department is putting up 6, and they want 6 from the county?
Yes.
Department's putting up 6 or the museum's putting up 6?
Pardon?
The department, he said the department is putting up 6?
The Virginia Department
Is putting up 6?
is putting up 6,000. Maryland South and the museums are really handling the whole thing. And by the way, they put in countless hours towards getting us historic.
Mr. Baines, if I could comment on this, I served on the Architectural Review Board in my previous life for jurisdiction over historic district designations. And in Petersburg, that thing got to the point that you could not do anything that could be seen from the street without having a citizen panel approve of it. And I just, it started somewhere, and that's where it ended up. And I got on it trying to be a business influence and put some common sense into it, if you will, and I got absolutely nowhere. But I'm just saying, it's a wonderful concept, but it's the first step to some control, because nobody that loves these historical resources wants them to look any different than the way they look right now. And that's changing the roof, or changing the windows, or painting the front door. And I know that's not what we're looking at now, but it's a little bit like a subject we talked on a little bit earlier. It's a slippery slope, and once you get 1 foot on a banana peel and 1 foot down the slope, but that's a decision I think that the citizens and property owners in Saluda need to be making a decision.
But I'd like you to give these people a call and talk to them about this before the meeting next month.
It's not my district, and I want what the people there that want.
It doesn't matter whose district it is. I'd like, because I've had the same concern, but I've got the impression that is not what happens anymore. Anyway, their address and everything is on there. If you could give them a call and talk to them about it. The second thing I wanted to say was, I am concerned about the boats leaving our county and the amount of tax that we're now getting from the large boats. I've always had a little bit of concern about, we lowered 5 tons or the cost on 5 tons or more versus smaller boats. Our big problem is that the state has a rule that says you must tax boats, but they have no minimum tax whatsoever. And so counties that don't want to tax put 0.000001 cent per 100 tax on the boats, which is nothing, of course. I feel that it would be a good thing to attack this problem from 2 standpoints. One is to have a meeting with all the surrounding counties, Essex certainly being one, mainly because Essex has already agreed to it. Lancaster, of course, and Gloucester. Hopefully, in the very near future, get everybody together and talk about regionally, can we come up with what we agree is a minimum. The other is to talk to Keith Hodges about getting the state rule to heaven. If you believe that there ought to be a tax, then there ought to be a number of what that minimum tax is. You shouldn't just say there has to be a tax. So those are the two directions that I would like to see us go in, to try and equalize this out, so as to get rid of the idea that we're losing boats because of our tax.
If I may, I've had the same thought about a regional effort. I wonder, where I always get hung up is, what are the chances of us getting 4 counties and 5 supervisors at each county to sit down on one issue? That's 20 people driving all over the place. Would it make more sense to ask our administrator, who already regularly meets with some of these counties' administrators, to sort of get a sense of if there is any potential there for a truce? Because in effect what we're doing is we keep launching grenades over our rivers at the other. And I think if there's a chance of finding out if there's will on those boards, these administrators poll us all the time for what we think about various issues. I think we might be able to task our administrator with sort of getting a sense for where there's traction for that idea, if that makes more sense.
I think that's very good. I do ask that you, Bill Smith of Essex, as one of those people that you talk to.
And I'll also add that if you find that there's some traction in one county or the other, and they're looking for a supervisor representative to come to them and talk to them about it, I'll make myself available for if such a meeting comes up.
I think that's a very reasonable approach to seeing if we got some traction. Don't you, Matt?
Mm-hmm. And Matt doesn't have any issue with time or anything, so one more thing should be fine.
I don't mind doing this at all.
Yeah, Matt and I spoke, talked a little bit about that, possibly at this upcoming VACO meeting.
Well, in terms of your other idea, I've approached Keith Hodges specifically about this with a slightly more aggressive tack. I make the argument that this is where the Dillon rule is in place for a reason, so that we as the counties who have limited ability to assess taxes don't find ourselves in these kinds of wars. We are supposed to be protected by that same Dillon rule that inhibits us from changing our taxes dramatically by the state, who's supposed to be making sure we don't get into these battles.
I hate to agree with you twice in the same day.
Most people just don't do it.
Thank you, John. I have exactly that same feeling.
Have anything else to add, Mr. Mansfield?
No, that's it, and of course I'm not
I
asking.
forgot one thing. I did do the
I'm sorry,
trip
it's
to
too
the
late.
Dragon Run. We did do the trip to the Dragon Run.
I was hoping you would mention that.
It was, I encourage everyone to do that.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's relaxing.
I wanted to do that, but we had to turn
And
church
the
tape
lady,
down.
there's a lady, I forget her name now.
Janice Moore.
Yeah, Miss Moore. She will narrate the whole trip as you go along. So everybody has little radios, and it's very safe. You have your life preserver and everything. Nobody spilled over, so nobody fell in the water.
took over.
Because I was thinking one time, because Betty went too. And what's her husband's name?
Minor.
Minor. I thought Minor was gonna go over a couple of times.
I lost a bet. I lost a bet. I bet Minor will.
I said, I'm getting away from him before he turned over. But it was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun and very educational and relaxing. And she gives you the whole information in the history of the dragon and the insects, the birds, everything. You know.
Is she a for-profit outfit?
No, it's all no. It's not for profit.
You make a donation to
You make a
Friends of
$50
Dragon
donation,
Run.
and it's a nonprofit organization, and that money just helps pay for the land. They purchased over 600 acres on the Dragon. It's to pay taxes on the land that they do have on the Dragon and other things that they do, cutting trees and stuff out of the waterway. But it was very educational. And very nice.
I'm wondering if our economic development
We have.
has tied that all together. That'd be a great trip.
There's a story behind that I'll share with you, but we encouraged the Friends of the Dragon Run to have a fall paddle this year. They don't do it every year because situations could come up. Like we've had a couple of hurricanes and a lot of trees down. Luckily for us, we were still able to pull it off.
The water was high this time because of the rain. That's why we didn't have to go over any logs.
And the beaver dams were already washed away. So the beaver dams present the biggest challenge.
But they have little trap doors for them too, so you can lift it up and down. So yeah.
That's right. I was not able to go, but I did talk to Janice, and go ahead and mark your calendars. We're going to try to make this an annual occurrence. Every Sunday after Oyster Festival, the last paddle of their season will be set aside for county employees and, of course, board members. So I'd highly encourage all of y'all who have not went or who have not gone to go.
Well, that's our church's takedown day from Oyster Festival, so I managed to keep myself busy most of that
Well, you
day.
got an excuse now where you won't have to take down.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the Friends of the Dragon Run meet on the 14th of November, and they have a great agenda, which I didn't note here, but I noted that I'm going to go, so it's got to be a good agenda.
Where?
They meet usually in Gloucester, at the Gloucester Library. I checked the website, though, to make sure. Sometimes at RCC. But before Larry leaves, I just wanted to check, John, you have a town hall for November 15th?
November 15th, 7 p.m., free shade, and Larry, congrats on your reelection.
Yes, congratulations. But I would like to attend, and I just want to know if there's more than 3 of us, we have to make that known.
I would.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I would.
I plan to attend, and there may be others, so.
Is there a third that plans to attend? November 15th, 7 p.m., free shade, and we'll cover anything the community wants to talk about, but our focus is broadband, cell reception, and public beach access.
And Mr. Coons, if you may, if you'd also include in the announcement, that will constitute a broadband authority meeting because you will have 3 members there as well.
And that will constitute a broadband authority meeting in that I will have at least 3 members of the broadband authority in attendance.
Thank you.
Well, let's just go ahead and announce it that way.
Yeah.
And then, if
If it doesn't
it's not a
occur,
meeting,
you're
it's not a
fine,
meeting.
you're covered.
Okay. All right, well, in no particular order, I attended the Oyster Festival dinner. Matt and I did the same thing that John and Matt did in looking around at possibilities for public beach access. John and I had the joint finance committee meeting with the schools. Emergency Services Committee met this month. As it was alluded to when Dr. Gretz was here, Claudia Suchek and Matt and myself and Peter and I forget who all else, representatives of the Sheriff's Department. We were all out at the schools one day last week.
Judge, the anti-bullying poster contest.
Well, we did that, but first we took tours and did around and stuck our heads in classrooms and did like I do over here at City Hall and try to interrupt as many people as I can every time I visit. And so that was nice. And then we had the judging of the anti-bullying posters, which was fun. And finally, I was invited to and did drive the Deuce and a Half in the Oyster Festival parade, and that was a ball. The kids just loved it. I was getting so much of this, and they wanted to hear those air horns. So we just
the kids love it. You say, Chip.
Yeah. Imagine it.
And that concludes my comments, and that should be just about everybody else's reports. And we've got a closed session.
And we will have action afterwards.
Correct.
Larry, if you need to leave, do you want us to call you and let you know what we do?
No, I'll wait.
Okay.
It could be a lengthy one.
It could be a lengthy one, and we're going to need to clear this room to do so. Okay.
All right. In that case, Madam County Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we need a motion from the board to convene in a closed session pursuant to the Code of Virginia, and there's 3 code sections we'll be referencing tonight. It's under 2.2-3711A3, 2.2-3711A8, and 2.2-3711A1. This in particular will be for the discussion and/or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose. And then the board will have consultation with legal counsel regarding that acquisition. It is also for consultation with legal counsel regarding the Cook's Corner housing project and the contract negotiations thereof. And lastly, there will be a discussion of personnel matters regarding the county administrator.
So moved. So moved, and do we have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So ordered.
Mr. Chairman, you want to take a quick recess?
Yeah, quick break. Yeah, we all. You noticed I was on.
Recording? Okay. Mr. Chairman, we need a motion to certify the following statement.
Oh, we're waiting on.
Sorry, I'm giving Susan just a moment to turn on the recording.
I was a little.
It's on.
I was a little
quick.
Okay. To the best of the members' knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted in the motion by which the closed session was called was considered or discussed in the closed session.
So move.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, so ordered.
Okay, and we have a public comment period.
We have no public.
We'll open the public comment period, and since nobody from the public is still here, we'll close the public
I
comment.
gotta go over and speak for an hour.
And I suppose the chairman will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.
Vote with your feet.
All right.